Okay, and welcome back to another exciting Readings in Electrical and Computer Engineering class. Today we're going to assign the midterm, which is due, and you're going to have to gather up all of the work that you've done in your prior 7 homeworks, and you're going to rework them and present them as a single codified thing. What I'd like to do is come up with an assignment that makes sense for everyone to do. Let's call this the midterm assignment, and it's called midterm assignment. Oh, what a good name for it. And then what we'll do is write it up so that you've got everything in there that you need in order to show what is a proper thesis proposal. This is for 1/3 of your grade. Sorry if you didn't come here today. Right? Sorry. So for the midterm, use all prior homeworks and rework them as needed into a single, well thought out thesis proposal. Okay. For your validation section, add the following features. Okay. And what we'll do is put in the following features. Describe the tests you need to validate your hypothesis. Use the attached article or download from, and actually we'll just say use the article at, and we'll put in this link right in here. Whoops, I'm having a little difficulty with my trackpad. Yeah. This is on IEEE computer validation methods, and I think what I can do is modify the link, and now what we'll do is we'll click on it. Let's see if this works. Mouse right, copy. It says the behavior blah 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 doesn't work. Give me a break. Really? I have to type this URL in? Shoot. What if I just hit copy and then did paste? Yeah, now it works. So here's an article on experimental methods for validating technology, which is the article I would like you to use to help guide your work in the area of validation. Validation means designing experiments that are going to confirm your hypotheses. So if you read through this article, what you'll see is that some kind of an experiment is needed in order to be able to conduct the validation. Let's see now. How do we experiment? There's a little thing in here, and now there's a table of different sorts of, I'll call them validation methods. They come with assertions, literature search, analysis. I'm leaning more toward experiment. So presumably you'll do some experiment, you'll do some observation, you'll collect the data, and it will determine whether or not your hypothesis is correct. That is what you might call the scientific method, right? So I'm leaning a little bit toward the scientific method. It will enable you to collect data that will verify or refute your claims, whatever they may be. Let's see now. What else do we got in here? It's a list of strengths and weaknesses, observational methods, project monitoring, validation methods. You should be able to use some kind of a designed experiment to validate your data. Mike, remind me again, what's your thesis?
The problem statement is finding out basically which forms of energy recapture are best suited for urban travel.
So it's not, what problem are you trying to solve?
That is the problem, that we're trying to deal with the fact that travel through urban situations, like cars aren't necessarily designed specifically for traveling in heavy traffic areas and things like that. So we're trying to figure out the best form of energy recapture for high traffic areas.
So what's your hypothesis?
That culling through the data, we're going to run some simulations and figure out what the best method for specific urban travel energy recapture is.
So after you determine the best method, how will you know if it's correct?
Well, what I plan to do, because there's a lot of information that's already been found about this, I'm going to tabulate the information and run simulations based on all the information that I've found and culled together.
Will you do any controlled experiments?
Just simulations, like running through data, mainly mathematical formula analysis, not so much like building anything because of cost. I'm not going to build like a motorbike or a go-kart or something.
I think you're going to have to come up with some sort of experiment that's going to validate your assertion that you've come up with a decent solution to this problem.
I was hoping to be able to do that through just using mathematics based on the information that's out there.
I'm looking for an empirical statistical method that will validate your hypothesis.
Yes, something very similar to that.
So you're going to come up with some kind of experiment that will enable us to validate this. I'm not exactly sure what that'll be, but after you've come up with, an assertion that everybody should be using motor scooters, then I'm not exactly sure how this is going to be validated through experiment. And if you can't have a thesis that can be validated through experiment, I don't know how you're going to come up with a legitimate validation system based on this paper. So you may have to modify your thesis somewhat. So if your goal is to say something like everybody should take a train because trains are the most efficient things, I'm not exactly sure how that's a legitimate thesis.
Okay.
Right? I mean, it's just like, so what?
Yeah.
How does that help anyone? Because we can't all take the trains because trains don't always go when we want or where we want. So I mean, that's sort of a not a valid thesis. And this goes to the question of what is a valid thesis. You need to have a valid thesis by now, and that means having a means of doing validation.
And the goal would be to figure out something like when a vehicle is traveling through high traffic area, there'd be some form of regenerative braking or some element that would specifically be switched on in those high traffic areas versus regular travel. Similar to certain vehicles like SUVs now have like a 4 to a 2-cylinder or an 8 to a 4-cylinder conversion in the engine. So there'd be some sort of a similar process going on.
Well, at some point, you're going to need some kind of validation, and there's this paper here on validation. If you have a hypothesis, you're going to have some kind of an experiment, I think, in order to validate the hypothesis. That's all I can think of. So that's going to become a part of your validation subsection. And then, what else do we need? After you read over that article, and you identify your validation technique, you're going to detail the data you plan to gather, detail the means for data collection, and use diagrams to show the data flow and graphs, enabling a concise presentation. Use those diagrams and images because you've already got a validation section written. So now you've got something that's essentially more visual in its presentation. And my guess is that you have yet to be able to state your goals clearly to me here in this classroom, which means you're probably not going to be able to write them down. So it sounds like you need to do some more thought about what it is you're doing for your validation. Because this idea that you're just going to have this, we're going to come up with something and it'll be better and we're not sure what it is, that doesn't fly. I want specific detail on how you will do your validation. Because otherwise, I think it would adversely impact your grade. For those who just walked in, we're discussing the midterm. So now what I'd like to do is I'll give it a standard number like 100 points, but we understand that this is something that counts more than a homework. It's a midterm, so it counts for like a third of your grade. If you took all the homeworks together and averaged them, that counts as much as a midterm. So it's this way. Homeworks count for a third, midterm counts for a third, and your final counts for a third. And there'll be more homeworks, right? But I would like very much for you all to really work hard on your midterm. And so I'm not going to assign another homework for next week. Plus, I think we have a nice spring break. So what we'll do is we'll make this midterm due, I'll call it 3 weeks from now. So that gives you a nice long time to focus in on your writing and get your midterm done. This midterm represents your first draft of your thesis proposal. So you're going to collect all of the work that you've been doing through the semester and focus it in to this paper that you're writing. And this paper is going to contain like this diagram about the validation with clearly stated goals. That is in addition to what you've already written about validation. You're going to have the same outline that we've been working on all along with your problem statement, your approach, your motivation, your ethics, your validation, your literature cited. Right? So there's going to be a bibliography. Be sure to cite, this is, I'll just say this. Your midterm will contain all the same subsections we've been working on all along. Nothing, we don't have to add a whole bunch of new subsections. All along, right? So, introduction and problem statement. Which came next? Was it approach? Approach, motivation, ethics. Which is next? No. Ethics comes next. Motivation, validation, and now you have a separate subsection called historical review or literature cited. Historical review, and then comes the literature cited. So if you were to number 1.0, then this is 1.1. I don't know if you like double numeration. I do. 1.2. 1.3. Isn't that right? 1.4. 1.5. Come on in. And then historical review would be 2.0.
Are you Professor Lyons?
Yep, that's me.
You have a library session with Jackie today?
I do.
Yeah.
We didn't. I didn't announce it because I didn't get a reminder and it slipped my mind.
Oh, okay.
I can
alright.
bring the class over there. What room number is it?
It's 114. It's the ground floor of the library.
Okay, we'll be right over. Thank you for coming.
Yep.
And so what we'll do here is we'll make this due in 2 weeks. Boy, that totally slipped my mind. This is the middle of midterm break, so we'll make it due April 1st. And it'll be due at 5 p.m. And if somebody has a sheet of paper, we'll put a note on the door. Or we can put a note on the she said it was 107, right? And we hit submit. And then we do close. And now we've got to stop this.